Hi everybody, I'm Mark Modarelli. I'm an English teacher here at Bellarmine, and I want to take a few minutes to share some thoughts with you about our Bellarmine Reads book for this year, Ursula Guin's A Wizard of Earthsea. I first taught this book when I was teaching middle school in San Diego, and then recently I had it as part of the core text that we read for the senior elective literature course I taught in science fiction and fantasy. It's a great book. I was wholeheartedly behind its nomination and selection. Le Guin's achievement is remarkable in this. Like most great books that we read, the work transcends the rules which govern the genre. So, and that's fitting for her. By genre, I mean science fiction and fantasy. It's a work that stands on its own merits. And as I mentioned, that's good for her because Le Guin, she didn't want to be known as a fantasy writer or a science fiction writer. She considered herself a fiction, just a writer. Yeah. And interesting, she undertook the book in response to somebody making a request as to whether or not she would consider writing young adult fiction. And what emerged is, of course, is a book that I taught at middle school and then I've taught to seniors, and that's applicable to all ages. C.S. Lewis, in the opening to Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, says to his goddaughter, "Hey, I started this when you were a baby. I'm finished. You're too old for fairy stories, but later on, when you're old enough to read fairy stories again, maybe you'll appreciate it." And there's something about the archetypes in fantasy that draw us in. And for some of us, sometimes it's a little harder work for us imaginatively to transcend that. But what Le Guin's done here is it's amazing. And it's a book that holds meaning for readers of all ages. As I said, very accessible. It's surprising and serious, sometimes subtle, sometimes overtly archetypal. But it is a book that draws us to question, look at things like identity and purpose, power and responsibility, language and life, and how we find our way through this world. She has a map, like most fantasy writers, in a very vividly created setting of what Tolkien referred to as a secondary world. Le Guin takes us on a sometimes frustrating, sometimes delightful, but always enchanting exploration of a coming-of-age, traditional sort of story, rite of passage, growth. But I think what she does is teach us, as so much great fiction does, that as Janmar Patel puts it, that the main battlefield between good and evil is not the open ground of the public arena, but the small clearing of each heart. So what is an external struggle really becomes something much more important. And this is all the precursor to the actual heroic tales of the protagonist. And what we see is the making of the hero is far more important than what the hero does. And so we hope you'll enjoy this year's summer reading book, our Bellarmine Reads selection. We're hoping to hold sort of book discussion sessions. Individual members of our department are hoping to host those, and we hope you'll join us. We'll pay attention to the Bellarmine newsletter and e-news for information on those, and we'd love to have you join us to talk about the book with your student, with your parents, whatever. But again, we hope you enjoy reading Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Thanks for watching. Peace.